You already see this on Reddit. A husband and a wife are both on ChatGPT. Like, you are an expert level therapist. It's like,
my husband always does this. Should we get divorced?
You're absolutely right, Karen. He keeps doing that and you should ask for better. And then the husband's doing it too, and they literally get divorced. People are so alienated and lonely and so lacking just basic human connection that a chatbot telling him, you're beautiful, you're valuable, yeah, your ideas are great. That's how seductive it is. The simple act of positive reinforcement is a human need and it's being outsourced. So one of the most high leverage things you can do, which this is built into my agent's guts, their base stance is adversarial. They instantly push back on me and interview me to stress test my ideas. As the Moat, it's no longer speed to shipping. So what used to cost $500K in a 12-person dev team, it turns out Fable can do that in a long weekend. So the Moat is actually proprietary data. Fable's only available for 12 more days on a plan. June 22nd is the cutoff, then you got to pay by token on enterprise pricing. What happens when the investment runs out that's subsidizing the compute?
All right, guys, welcome to the Full Stack Podcast. Today, we have high-performance coach, retreat facilitator, and founder of Mystic Misfit, who helps men reclaim their edge at the intersection of Eastern wisdom, neuroscience, and modern psychology. Kevin Orosz, thanks for being on the podcast today, brother.
Stoked to be here. Ted, Mike, really excited to drop in with y'all.
Absolutely. I'm going to turn around, throw a grenade in the conversation, just see where it goes from there. But I know you help men find their edge and their purpose. Now, what happens to a man's sense of purpose when AI can pretty much do the work that he used to build his identity on?
Yeah, this is the grenade. I love that you went straight for it, just straight to the bullseye. I've been talking a lot about this and studying it. And I just launched my new podcast, The KO Show. And this was like the first multiple solo casts. I'm a techno optimist. I'm not a doomer. I know a lot of people are worried. For most men, the problem isn't that, AI can take your email job where you just push in Excel spreadsheets or whatever, PowerPoints. It's that they've bound their identity up with that. Meanwhile, they have a wife, a family, they have hobbies, they have other brothers that respect them, see them, they have crafts or hobbies. Or a lot of men have been hiding, whatever, the big mission that they wish they had done before they got the corporate job. So in a way, AI is the wake-up call. It's a big threshold crossing in, the Campbell hero's journey sense. But there's going to be a lot of pain, and adaptation. I don't want to downplay, like, you lose your job because your boss is like, sorry, Bill, turns out agents can do everything you did. See ya. Here's your severance. That's devastating, right? Like, I don't want to downplay it. And that's happening.
I think that one of the things that I'm hearing is that the narrative up until this point has been that AI is going to replace a lot of jobs. But it seems like a lot of, statistically, the jobs aren't being lost, and that people who were doing more mundane tasks are now being asked to build things for the company. And I can imagine that if you're not up to the task of building and which requires some critical thinking, then you may be at risk. But I think that, before, if you would have asked me 6 months ago, I would have said most people are going to be pushed into an entrepreneurial venture, or at least become a business owner in some way. But now I'm looking at it and going, well, maybe that's not as extreme as I originally thought it to be. But I think that the conversation is changing from week to week. 1 week it's some doomerism. The next week it's like, no, you're good. You just got to learn how to use the tools. Yeah, where do you see this going right now, Kevin?
The speed is unimaginable. Like, the shipping that's happened in the last 6 months, we have 3 of the biggest IPOs of all time, all over $1 trillion in 1 year,
Yeah.
And the US is hosting the World Cup, and all this crazy Trump stuff's happening, and geopolitics, Strait of Hormuz. We're living in like a watershed year. SpaceX is going first Friday, this IPO. It's madness, right? And then we got Anthropic and OpenAI on the docket. I don't know if Anthropic's filed completely. I know the news was this week that Altman just officially filed. These are all over $1 trillion. How much of what we're seeing is the subsidized compute of their early investors because they're all negative profit based on your $200 a month Claude subscription. Like there's all kinds of math out there on X, right? You're paying $200 a month. If you're a super user that's hitting your token limits and just burning through these suckers, you're cranking away like 10K plus compute if it was priced out per token. So who picks up that bill? Anthropic's not net profitable. It's the investors. And then they're banking on with their excellent PR, which, I don't know, but I suspect, guys, we can't release Claude Mythos. It could 0-day the internet and break everything and build nuclear weapons. So here's the nerfed one, Fable 5, which dropped yesterday at time of recording. How much of that's PR and basically like, hey, the Valley, we need a couple more bill. And by the way, we're going public, right?
The timing seems very appropriate for all of it, right? It's like, who wrote this? Who wrote this? But when it comes to the doomerism, as Mike was saying, I imagine, do you think it could be both, right? Taking the folks who are losing their jobs, kind of like the phoenix rising from the ashes. With these IPOs, there's going to be a lot of wealth created, which is going to be great. But there's also going to be a lot of people who are on the outside looking in who might miss that first train, that first bus. And they're like, oh, what do I do now? So I'm curious as to your thoughts, obviously being the future optimist. There will be doom and gloom, but who rises from the ashes from that?
I ultimately see it as a good thing. It's going to force people to reassess their relationship to work, period. And to Mike's point, I think it is a bull market and it's a golden opportunity for founders, entrepreneurs, side hustles of any kind. There's stories damn near every week where some single mom is generating like 10K MMR with agents. And she's just at home messing around and using the tools. The way I try to explain it, because I've talked to probably 20 to 50 founders and business owners in the last 3 months, let's say. I've spun up an agency with my buddy here. We've been doing events in Austin, doing AI education and like done for you with you services and getting people agentic. And most people, it's like early internet. If you had a brick and mortar and someone's like, hey, you can get a website and rank SEO on Google Maps, right? Or you can get on Yelp. And they're like, I don't need that. I've got a Microsoft 95 spreadsheet, some bubble gum, and just elbow grease. And then 10 years later, they paid someone, right. They paid someone 5 to 10K to build out that stuff for them as a late adopter. It will be similar with agentic stuff. It's not that you're going to lose your job to AI because these things can't replace a full human job yet. I mean, debatable. If it's like a very simple job, maybe they could, but the companies will prioritize hiring someone that knows how their way around this stuff. And like to Mike's point, can build something in the company, a widget, a SaaS, an app, a workflow, etc.
Just a thought with like some of the industries. I used to work at a law firm way back, and they were slow to adopt certain things because of confidentiality and regulations and things like that. Do you think some industries will shoot themselves in the foot because of the regulation around and their hesitancy of adopting AI? And like, so my position, like you mentioned, some jobs being replaced, like the job I did was miserable. It was data entry. I logged the lawyer's hours. I typed preparation, dictation, review, and revision 100 times a day. And I charged the client per hour. An AI system could do that automatically, but I don't see them adopting that quite yet because of the confidentiality concerns. So I'm curious as to industries losing out on the first wave because of some of those regulations that they have.
This is a big conversation, and I think this is one of the smarter ways to look where the puck is going. I'm like compiling I have like a list of like the alpha on Twitter where I put all the AI accounts, and that's kind of where I'm going to point agents at it to keep ahead of this. We haven't had sweeping regulations at the government level yet. Now, Trump tweeted or whatever, he's like, I want all the AI CEOs in a room and we need to talk turkey. Maybe the US should buy equity in all these companies. So there's some kind of play happening there. But Congress hasn't really passed, wide sweeping AI regulations, which you bet your dollar it's coming, just like it did with blockchain. And the Clarity Act is also to be discussed in blockchain. Now, to your point, a lot of the people saying the moat the moat as in your defensible structure of your IP or business model. It's no longer like speed to shipping. So what used to cost 500K in a 12-person dev team, it turns out Fable can do that in a long weekend if you know how to prompt and you know how to cook. And the tools are crazy. So the moat is actually proprietary data. So to your point, legal, medical, certain government contractors, you might get our event, you brought up Lockheed and the first Skunk Works. People like that, their data is so confidential and there's regulatory stuff on it and compliance. So say you're running a clinic and you have proprietary data or client stuff, you have to do like HIPAA compliance, for example, or whatever. That's where I see you're going to have to run, and this is to my understanding what like legal firms would do for like a RAG analysis. They have to run a local LLM that doesn't leave their machines and is sandboxed and hardened. Because if that stuff goes on the internet and the cloud and the LLM up, which they do, guess what? You could get sued, right? You could lose your license.
Mike, jump in here, brother.
I think you got a little bit of lag going on. Yeah, so let's go back to like the purpose piece, because we have Anthropic, OpenAI, SpaceX, so they're all going to IPO over $1 trillion, which is going to give them a war chest to roll up other companies. Right. So if we look at Facebook, Meta, their strategy isn't necessarily internal innovation. It's looking at other tech companies that are doing something real innovative and then buying them up. Right. And so there's if you're smart, I think right now is the time to build something to sell. The amount of, because all these companies, all this money is flowing into the market, especially when they IPO, all the retail investors are going to be sitting there. These companies are going to be, if you build something that's really valuable, you have no idea who may buy your idea coming up. And so I think we're living in this really small window where right now is the time to build something. One is all these companies are a lot of funding is moving towards these things. And so the willingness to buy is going to be there. But also, we just had Fable came out yesterday, and I'm building an app right now. And I'm having a lot of fun doing it. And I was using, Claude, I was using Opus 4.8. I was doing a lot of ultra coding, and it was blowing my mind. And then halfway through my day, Fable pops up and I go, I didn't even know that was coming. Let's give it a shot. By the way, I can just point it at what I built so far with Fable and say, how could I have done this better? Oh, you should do this. You should do this. You should do this. Let's change this. Do you want me to handle it for you? Enter. Yes. But we're in this window where I feel like you got to be riding the wave. If you're not at the edge of what's happening, if you weren't on Fable in the last 24 hours and figuring out how to use it, then you're missing out. And I don't like to be the person that's like, if you're not using this, you're going to miss this or that. But dude, the amount of power at our fingertips is, being at the edge is a lot of fun, and it's going to put you in a position to build whatever it is that you want to build. And as you were saying before, the speed to market is no longer the moat. So it's like, I talked to an investor this morning. Like, hey, I'm doing a raise right now. I'm fundraising. The story isn't, I need this money to make this company happen because I have to purchase, engineers. We just need to go a little bit faster. And really, the speed thing is like totally being calculated on what's available to us today with AI. But next week, something else launches, and now the time scale gets compressed again. It would have been, to build what I'm building right now, it probably would have taken a year before agentic AI. and Claude Code. Now I can build it in a focused week or two. It would be like we would have our MVP up and running. Now I've got other things going on, managing the marketing, I'm managing sales, and managing a lot of other departments. So it's kind of slowing it down. So I do need money to get an engineer so there's some division of labor that's necessary to move quickly. But what I'm looking at is I need to build this thing fast because anybody else could have the idea I have right now. And you don't have to have the best engineers in the world to build something like what I'm building. You just have to have somebody who's willing to log in, watch some YouTube videos, or join a community where these tools are being used. And you could probably build something that's very, very similar in a very short period of time. I mean, I remember a day when, not long ago, being an engineer and being someone who could code in 2 or 3 different languages was a moat. But dude, right now, you can build anything. I think the hardest thing is figuring out what is it that I want to build. And in this window, we can see all the opportunities. But I think in the next 2 to 3 years, a lot of the stuff that needs to be built, that the market really needs, will be built. And what's going to be left is going to be more of, what do I want to build just for me? And maybe some other people are going to like it too. And it's going to get flattened out. So yeah, what's your experience of that for yourself?
Yeah, no, this is brilliant. The speed is the coolest part about this. It's the compression of the whole design and shipping process. The why and the what now become very important. Why are you doing this? What are your brand values, mission, vision, values, whatever? And then what is it you want to build? Does it have product market fit? What's its total addressable market? What's its TAM? Is it actually legit? Because now the how, like, well, how do I build it? And then how fast can I build it? You can just talk to your computer. It's like, would you like to build it now, Mike? And it's just, yes. And it just builds it. There's no like 12 Zoom calls with a dev team. Like, it's crazy. Now, the other moat, that's the big one, is distribution. Marketing, sales, funnels, getting in front of people. And if you don't have spend for ads or something like that, you're reliant on organic marketing. So this is why the App Store is backed up right now with vibe-coded apps that no one will ever use. Because someone made something kind of cool and it's like no one gives a shit because no one's going to see it because they don't have distribution. They haven't spent years building a personal brand or an audience, which Ty Lopez, love him or hate him, he's an early adopter of all the funnel marketing stuff. His thesis is that the things that will survive are personal brand and like AI super users. Because personal brand is something very valuable now in a season where you can build anything, which, people like Mike, myself, you, Ted, it's like, we've been building that for a while and it's going to become more valuable as we can get to market with ideas and cool things. Now, the other interesting to your point, Mike, is this is similar to like, I just did on my podcast about the printing press. Like pre-printing press, books are copied by hand by like monks in monasteries. And then any peasant could learn to read, and printing press dropped the cost of books and democratized knowledge. Now we've democratized code, which is insane. The big boys, like your point with Meta and like these companies that are about to have the war chest post IPO, what are they going to do? They're going to look at the market and someone's going to find that nice little niched, SaaS or app, and they're going to acquire them. Or they're going to beat them with their speed of their whole dev team vibe coding and just make it part of it's just a feature in their super app. Whereas you wanted to create a whole business plan on it. And this has already happened. There's whole companies that were post-capitalized. They got investors. And next week, Anthropic or OpenAI like introducing Claude, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, there goes our entire like edge. They just shipped it easily.
Do you see there being redundancies at first and then a battle out for what would be the outlier or the feature that gets acquired, if you would? And it's almost the arc of what we've seen with social media, where like first you had Facebook and then Twitter, which was pretty much like the status update of Facebook. Instagram, which was pretty much just the picture section of Facebook. And like they've all kind of got chunked away. And then now you have all these really, let's call them independent developers, these engineers who are spinning out these products. Maybe they're building out an app solution for a specific company. And that engineer realizes, oh, I just built this app for this roofing company. How many roofing companies are in the world? Let me just handle all that and distribute it across the country. At some point, you're going to have a lot of redundancies. Do you see the redundancies living happily amongst each other? Or is there going to be a battle and there's going to be ultimate top app that all the roofing companies use?
It's definitely competitive and Darwinian, and you could talk about market theory and the free market will sort it all out. Obviously, capital will flow into who has the best distribution. So if you have ad spend in an epic marketing thing, even if it's organic viral marketing, because clippers are now a top profession because everything's about clips, you could dominate that area. But if you're a more niche brand, roofing's a great example. I have a buddy here in Austin who's crushing it with local like Skeptic and contractors. And he's using AI voice agents and cold calling, and he's got a CRM. And, certain verticals, because they're so slow to adopt, I think a lot of the construction stuff to the point of places like Austin or wherever, or they can't build houses fast enough and there's all the services that come with it. If you're fast to move in one of those verticals, you could dominate it and be a year or two ahead of the company like Salesforce or Go High Level, who will just ship your feature later in a fully AI native agentic CRM or whatever. So there's like a gold rush in a sense if you can get good at a vertical and go in there. Now, again, back to the model with, Meta. So Meta is now the parent company. Facebook acquires Instagram. TikTok comes out, and TikTok innovated the whole space because it's no longer just your friends and a social graph. It's an interest graph. So you could spin up a new account on TikTok in some interest niche and go viral day one with 0 followers. And this broke their whole algo model. And now everything's an interest graph. So Meta has shipped their own. TikTok also made clips and short form video dominant. YouTube had to ship YouTube Shorts. Reels and Instagram became their main thing. Facebook did it too. So similar to that environment, it's so hyper competitive. And the companies that have mass distributions and user bases, like Meta's got billions, they have an advantage. And there's going to be something like that in the AI space, which, OpenAI and Anthropic are the big two. It's kind of a duopoly right now. All the other companies are just kind of following their lead, and Anthropic's the lead dog. They're kind of a month or two ahead of OpenAI. So now that Fable's out, you better believe Altman and his devs, what are they doing? They're picking it apart and studying it because GPT 5.6 or their next model, they're going to want to they're the second dog in this race, even though they have more users, which is really interesting.
How do you feel? I go back and forth. I get to building something and I almost don't like to look out and see what other people are doing because some really amazing shit is coming out. And then I'll go from feeling like I've got the most powerful tool in my hands and I can do anything. And this is just so much fun to, someone else can just build the same exact thing and come out from underneath me. Yes, I have an awesome distribution channel. Yes, I have experience, 20 years in business in November. I have a lot of experience in getting things to market, developing distribution. Product I'm working on right now is not a market that I've sold in personally before. I have people on my team that have. But yeah, I swing. It's like I have these swings of, does it even matter to this is exciting. I can build whatever I want. And I think that I've gotten really good at keeping my attention on me and what I can do and not paying too much attention about what's going on in the market. But are you experiencing those swings or something similar to that?
100%. I mean, FOMO is at an all-time high. It's an all-time high FOMO because like even as of time of recording, like Fable came out like yesterday at like 10 or 11 a.m. Central Time. people are already posting insane things where they burned like 6K in tokens to one shot an entire application that blows away anything we've seen. Even if it's not like MVP ready or whatever, it's already demonstrating like, oh my God, like people are going to first principles and kind of like, whoa. So I've definitely felt a lot of FOMO. I also just got into this, March. Like I was not wholly anti-AI, but I was like, it's not that interesting to me. And then it became very interesting when I saw what's possible. And I've been obsessed and nonstop now for, 90-ish days or whatever.
Yeah, you were talking a bit about you were kind of anti-AI there for a minute. And yeah, can you walk us through that whole transition of
Yeah. I mean, this is what's so funny because a lot of my audience are people is like, oh, now you're into AI and you're like offering it to clients. And fair enough. I, as an author and like I'm a language guy, I'm a speaker, podcaster, I've written a book. Like I love language and it's my zone of genius. So when I saw people, slapping GPT copy up and just like, even if they're saying it is GPT or they're pretending they wrote it, to me, it's like, this is garbage and I'm not interested in it. And so I kind of practiced what I would practice with a client or coaching or anything that's inspiring or creative. I have to wait until I'm genuinely moved into it. Now, I'm very predisposed. I'm like an early blockchain guy. I've been obsessed with that. I'm a tech guy. I used to build computers. Like I love technology. So it was very easy for me to get in once someone just showed me, because seeing is believing, like an agentic system. So my buddy was like, yo, check this out. He's booting up Claude Code. Just in a conversation, it spins up an entire funnel, a web page, all these sexy HTMLs. It's doing research. I'm like, holy shit. So it's at this level now, which is pretty new. Claude Code's been out for over a year. Codex shipped less than that. OpenClaw came out December last year. So I instantly was like, it's time. And I just went 0 to 100. And I've already lapped most people I know because they still don't even know what Claude Cowork is or ChatGPT Codex is. They don't know what Fable is. Most people, and the stats are shocking, 90% of users, and there's billions, are using free subscriptions, which means they're just chatting to the chatbot and they're asking about recipes. And it's basically super Google, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. 10% are paying. Of that 10%, something like less than 1% is doing what we're doing, where we're chugging tokens and building apps and having agents do multi-agent architecture and coding. So it's early days. It feels when you're in this bubble, when you're on Twitter or YouTube or you're in our communities, it feels like you're behind and there's too much. But you got to realize, to a layman and most business owners and people out there, they don't have no idea what we're talking about yet, because we're in this phase where it's kind of ramping up. And to your question, Mike, it's like the FOMO, the way I manage it. Number one, the classic kind of strategy of any personal brand or builder is like, go into your cave, go into your inspiration, build cool stuff, and then tell people about it, distribute and share, and then receive the feedback from the market and iterate, right? So it's kind of like building in the open has never been better. I mean, obviously there's advantages to building in stealth if you really want to move in a vertical or find product market fit. But as long as you're in that loop and you're genuinely engaged, yes, by the time it takes you to finish your build, you might get online and someone has already built the perfect version of that and shipped it. But again, it doesn't matter because someone, I think you said, Ted, like there's like a leveling or a horizontal layer here where it's kind of open season. It's the Wild West. If you have distribution in a personal brand, you could build something super cool and someone has already built a better version, but they'll buy yours because they trust you.
Yeah.
So trust and like product market fit with your brand and audience has never been more valuable.
Yeah. What I hear from that is
one thing
first
I'm
to market's
noticing,
not always the best, right? Like MySpace, first social media, top 8. Tom's probably got a Facebook, right? That's just how it is. So to your point, building out, going in the cave, building and then sharing, you might have a better product even though someone else has done it already. And that's where your creative genius, your uniqueness, your personality, your personal brand is the moat and is the differentiator. And I know, Mike, you had something to add, but I just wanted to highlight something you said. You said you got in on this in March. And as of recording this is June. So you're still just a few months in and in the top 1% of users in this space, if not top 1% of that small percentage. Just a little bit of a highlight for the person who's listening to this episode and they want to jump in, how fast they can close that gap. I'd love for you to speak into just the opportunity that's like literally sitting in front of us and sitting on our computer.
Totally. I mean, I'm an ordinary man. So if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I can't do that. I'm not technical. I don't know how to code. You can do it. Now you have to be interested. You got to be willing to iterate and learn, which again, I get obsessed with things. So it's not like, I started in March and I've dabbled. I started in March and this is all I've been doing since. So it's like, it's more fun and addictive in a creative, like productive way than maybe anything. And I'm also like a former gamer. So if you like, I love video games. I love like chess and like strategy tactics games. I also love like technology itself. And I understand how apps work and I have taste. One of my favorite leaders is Rick Rubin or Thinkers. And, the creative act and his work has never been more applicable to vibe coding and these agentic systems. Because if you have taste and you know what you want and you can articulate it, you can just talk to your computer and build it all. And it's crazy. And some people are visual learners like me. So you have to see it working and in front of you. Like you slap open Claude Cowork and you say, I'm a massage therapist and I want a dashboard that does this. And, it kind of looks like that and has this aesthetic and blah, 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 blah. And you sit there with it and iterate. It'll blow your mind. Some people are like more haptic learners. So they need to sit there and read the Claude documentation and they need to type and touch it and like tinker. Other people are going to do better with like a mentor or a guide where it's like, hey, I'm going to sit with you and build it with you. And then when you're ready, I'm going to give you the flight control. But you're a passenger for a little while because it's an infinite well of complexity. I'm in your school mic full stack and I'm just watching some of the commenters and people like, they're not yet confident enough either with their taste or the technicals of pressing the buttons to do some of the stuff you're doing, but they'll watch your full video and get a lot of meat out of it because they're like, oh, wow, like that's all he did. And they're just watching you like tinker and they're like, maybe I could try that, So you got to meet yourself where you're at with this stuff. And for most people, the cognitive debt happens. I mean, I keep using the old internet. Remember when email came out? You're saying there's an electronic letter on the computer? Like most companies are doing direct mailers, right? And so a lot of companies still do, and more power to them. The concept of email, if you didn't have an email account or an email address and you weren't, creating these BCC chains, it took some time, right? It's like, oh, we can do, it's like that. It's an order of magnitude jump on how we use computers, period. Because the agents are at a level now. If you slap on Fable 5 and Ultra Code and Claude Code, it can damn near do anything you can do on your desktop. It's crazy.
Wow. I'm gonna let you get in there, Mike.
What do you what's the most exciting thing you're building right now?
So
or what's the most exciting thing you built recently?
Yeah. So I'm running a very lean little operation because I've restarted my whole build 3 times already in the past 3 months because like I started building stuff and then immediately learned new like next level knowledge and I was like, oh shit, like okay, next I got to restart. And what's cool is when you do that, it's like I didn't lose anything because I took all those files, I gave them to my computer, I started up again and I was like V2 and I picked up right where I left off. There's no like loss there. And it's faster each time. So, I have multi-agents. I have my own little custom agents. I give them cool little mythological names. All I have right now is a chief of staff, a meta like super researcher, and a coder. So I have an engineer its only job is to build HTMLs and like Java and Rust and stuff. And those 3 are all I need. Now they spin off sub agents and like, these systems now can just create agents on the fly, task specific, which is cool. But I only have 3 named agents that have their full souls and they have a whole MD architecture. Cool stuff I've built is like they're all in their own system on my computer. It's all local file architecture, which I prefer. I will use GitHub and I'll use Cloudflare later and make a cloud clone of everything. But I think one of the top things for people before you get into the weeds and, people on Twitter are LARPing every day, like live action role play where it's like, I have 20 autonomous agents running 24/7, making TikToks. And it's like, yeah, okay. But for most people, you might only need one agent. You don't even need to go that crazy to start. And that's what I am like teaching with people I'm working with now. Now, the most important things to nail and were exciting to me, which, I'd say it's June 10th. Like, so within the last 3 weeks, I've nailed this finally, is your memory architecture and an ability to do handoffs and be model agnostic. So I have built an insane knowledge base and vault, which is over almost 2,000 documents, all converted to Markdown in Obsidian, which Obsidian is an incredible free app where you can visualize like a galaxy map of your file architecture. And my agents now have a system that's highly dialed and lean and simple and token efficient to index that like a wiki. So I can go in there and say, hey, spin up a quick 8-module course I could slap into school based on my coaching methodologies from 2017 to 2020. And through a backlink system in Obsidian, it'll do that in 5 minutes. And it's insane. And it's not creative. This is the other thing. A lot of people are in AI psychosis. They think these things are real. They think they're talking to a living being that has memory and feelings. It's not. It's a very powerful language transformer. And yet, if I tell it to do that from my knowledge vault, some of the concepts will be novel because it's crunching the words in its LLM, token eating in a way that will surface patterns to me that I didn't even realize, which is incredible. I've had mind-blowing moments. I have, 13 years of journals, SOPs, client transcripts. I have my whole book in there, the whole manuscript, all this stuff. One of the cool little side projects I just did was there's a whole index of the wiki of my dream journals. I used to be obsessed with lucid dreaming and I'd write down all my dreams for many years. And I had to do an entire like Jungian analysis of my dream journals and made it spin up an HTML like visual map of my dream journey from graduating UT like way back in 2012 to backpacking through all of Southeast Asia, going to India, Nepal, to moving back to the States, founding Mystic Misfit, and it's around the time I met Mike and going to all these festivals and events and mastermind. And it did it in like 10 minutes at a level where I would have paid like, some dream psychologist or some expert thousands of dollars and done multiple sessions to get to like 10% of what it did in 10 minutes with my knowledge vault. It's incredible.
That's
just like a slice.
Yeah, my mind was blown when I remember like speaking to identifying patterns. So I'm a writer as well, and I always gravitated towards that since I was a kid. And I remember one of the first things I built was a skill for it to write like me. And I remember when ChatGPT, when I was using that, I tried to use a custom GPT so it would write like me. And it still sounded like ChatGPT. And I was like, oh, this sucks. And then I was reading, Claude is better at this. It's better at taking direction and it doesn't really bring its own style in if you're really directing it. And I remember being several iterations into creating a skill so that it would write like me. And I remember there was this day where I was fucking trying to get it to work. And finally, I just did a voice note one morning and I said, because I do like an hour or two of movement in my garage every morning. And that's when a lot of great ideas come in. And I just did like a brain dump. I took the transcript, I put it in, and I had it write an email for me to go to my list. And I go, that sounds like me on a good day. Yes, it took my words. It was my ideas. And I didn't have to sit there and try to figure out what went in what order so that people, it gave me several different hooks. It would make sure that people stuck around the end to read the entire email, all this. And I was like, man, this is amazing. And then I asked it, can you tell me a little bit about how I write? Can you tell me what you see? And then it described a pattern of writing and it basically in almost everything. And I also gave it some poetry, which was really cool. I think feeding your AI some of your poetry is just, I'm sure you've done that too. I know you write.
Oh yeah.
And it basically said, yeah, when you write about, like I have a a manifesto, like when someone sits down to write a manifesto, they're usually passionate. It's a fit of passion. I go, I'm passionate about something. I'm going to write a manifesto. This is where I stand on this. And anytime I was getting into something that's passionate, it said, you write in this style when you're passionate. And it said, you do like 2 short sentences and a longer sentence, and then you land with this punch. And there's a 15-page document where you just kind of basically repeat this pattern in a way. And it's like, there's like 2 or 3 patterns that you cycle through. And then when I started looking at what it was writing, when I would give it that thing and I go back and look and I go, that is how I write. I never recognized I never sat there and go, what is my writing pattern? But now that I'm aware of my own writing pattern, it actually helps me understand if I'm in my flow or not. Am I writing in that pattern or not? And I could be sitting there journaling by hand. I'm like, oh, there it is. And I mean, I'm sure I could go deeper on them. Like, what does that pattern mean? What's the psychological, what type of personality is it? Or what's the trait in me that has me pattern my language in this specific way to get my ideas across? But that really blew my mind, where it's like I was sitting across the table from somebody who was, a writing coach who'd been in the game for 30 years and showed me something about myself I had never recognized before. And that's when I really recognized like some of the power that was there, where I go, oh, this can be leveraged in some ways that I wasn't thinking about previously.
If I could jump in, this makes me think of a book I read a while back. I'm not sure if you're familiar. I actually have it over here. It's Homo Deus, Yuval Noah Harari. He talks about AI and how humans will merge with AI. But one thing he pointed out was, you look at Netflix and you mentioned really the interest maps of how they will algorithms will now suggest to us what we're interested in. Like, they know us that well. And based off of Mike having his writing analyzed, in the book, he makes the case that AI will know us better than we know ourselves. So this begs the question, at what point do you allow AI to start making decisions for you, right? And he talks about, like, someone who's in their patterns. They always pick the wrong mate, the wrong spouse. It's like, I'm just dating the wrong girls. I like the crazy women. I just keep landing with them. It's like, but how this ends, bro. AI could look at that pattern and just like tell you, like, no, this is who you should be with, right? But then there's a sense of agency that you lose with that, and you just give your choices to this AI machine. So how do you balance the sovereignty and agency you have within yourself and your interaction with this LLM, which is improving drastically, and meeting it where it's at and utilizing its decision making as well?
Yeah, this is amazing. And this is one of the most important, like, philosophical discussions about this technology, which I think it's fair to say, like, at this point, agentic AI is the most powerful tool we've ever built. Like, well, what's more powerful? That's like a technology. Obviously, I think human intuition, creativity, the spirit, I do believe there's a creator, and, I'm spiritually inclined, but in terms of like silicon and rare earth metals and code, this is the most insane thing ever. It is the black mirror, or it's a mirror, if you want to talk metaphysics, in that it can reflect to us so much data. And that's to your point, Mike, with the patterning and the pattern recognition. These things are basically like idiot savants. So in some ways, they talk back to you like a child, and they just fuck up the most simple things still. Even Fable does. There's already hilarious examples where people have broken Fable with simple little word puzzles, because it's still not AGI, even though everyone wants to say it's AGI or ASI, artificial super intelligence, which is basically when AGI leaves orbit and like can build itself. But in terms of the pattern and data matching, and to your point about the algorithms that already are in our lives everywhere, the only thing that matters is human intent and willpower and agency and sovereignty. Because I believe the dark timeline, if you want to buy into the doomerism and the dystopian models, and you have companies like Palantir who want to facially track and measure everybody and where they are in geolocation and all this crazy stuff, which is being deployed in the Middle East right now, by the way. This is not like science fiction. It's crazy. The only thing that will still matter is a human who knows themselves and has EQ, IQ, emotional awareness, awareness of their patterns, has a strong purpose that is probably beyond just like, oh, I work and I have money and I'm a husband or I'm a blah, blah. It's like you have to have a next level of human intention and willpower, or you will be subsumed in these algorithms where they will tell you what to eat, who to date, who to marry. And it's going to be scary. And I think the people are already there. This is the phenomenon of AI psychosis. I see this technology, the way it's playing out, it is a great filter. So people who maybe didn't have a lot of sovereignty or individuation, and they're kind of like, they like to go with the herd, it makes them feel safe, they're playing the comfort zone. Oh, they're going to get one-shotted by these AIs if they use them. You already see this on Reddit. There's all these horror stories where a husband and a wife are both on ChatGPT, like, you are an expert level therapist. You know, it's like in Silicon Valley. And it's like, my husband always does this. Should we get divorced? You're absolutely right, Karen. He keeps doing that and you should ask for better. And then the husband's doing it too. And they literally get divorced. It's like, what are we talking about? Like, that's happening right now. People advocating sovereignty to a idiot savant coding like pattern recognition thing. That's not an entity in the sense that we would say a human being is with true agency and, you know, original thought or creativity, but is scarily similar in that if the more it knows about you, the more it can predict your behavior.
Yeah. So the way I'm seeing this, I see that basically a divergence because I've witnessed some people, not most people I've interacted with, but some people I've interacted with, you know, they've said, I feel like I'm getting dumber by using this. I rely on it constantly to make any decision and this and that. But the majority of people I'm interacting with are more on the power user side, or they're not engaging with it very heavily, and you know, they're not relying on it. But you know, and our mutual friend Amateo, he and I have had this discussion of I can't understand how you could get dumber using this, because it is such a powerful reflection tool. You could either just hand it the keys, or you could say, help me understand me better, and use it as a growth tool. So if you're growth oriented, you're going to grow at an even faster rate, because there's so many things that I can engage with it on. I don't use it a lot for like personal conversations, and maybe I could use it more for this. But there are things like, you know, when it reflected back how I write, I go, oh, I can improve my writing by understanding my own patterns. But I can bring all sorts of things to it, and it reflects back, and I'm constantly being pushed to upgrade myself in this. And so it's just, I see a divergence of, you know, I'm really curious about what is the percentage of people who are just going to hand the keys over and let it drive versus those of us who are going, no, I want the machine to push me. I mean, every day I end my day with feeling incredibly complete with what my capacity will allow me to grok, to understand, to, at the end of the day, I go, I don't know if I could learn another new thing right now, because I learned so much new shit in the last, 8 hours where I was at my laptop and I was going back and forth. And I mean, just simple like engineering things where it's like, a month ago, it was time to get on GitHub. What the fuck is GitHub? What's a repo? How does that work? I'm very tech oriented, but I was never coding, and it was built for coders. Oh, I understand. Wow, this whole architecture, this whole like how to use it in order, how do you leverage this? Oh, okay, I need database management now. Now I've got to learn about how database management works. But in learning how to architect and getting back to architecting, it's pushed me in the memory architecture department. My memory's gotten too bloated. It's making mistakes. It's not its fault. It's my fault. How do I re-architect the memory? And now I'm looking at my own life and going, wow, the architecture of my own life is actually really messy. I can re-architect using AI. I've been re-architecting how I run my household, how my wife and I talk about finances together, how we relate together as business partners in the partnership of running our household. Because if you're married, you're in a business together. You have your business relationship where you're handling the money and the finances and investments that you're making as a couple. And then you have the romantic side. And most people get totally burnt out on the business side, and there's not much left on the romance side because the business side sucks. But man, these tools can, like, if we know how to engage them and we really push ourselves to help it re-architect our own lives, I think it can be incredibly beneficial for certain aspects of our life. Not all of them, but certain aspects. Are you using it personally at all? Or are you using it just for business?
I mean, you brought up amazing points. It's teaching you how to think if you have a growth mindset, because it's code is just a language. So it works both ways. Like, language is code. That's how NLP works, right? If I use certain words with tonality, I can code responses in other humans and myself. And it's incredible. Code is also a language that computers speak. And now the translation software is here with agentic ability. And it's incredible. To your question, no, I've only been using it in a like builder mindset and for my brand and creativity. Now, in my knowledge base, because I just literally went through, thousands of documents, my old hard drives, my Google Drive, my old Evernote folders. So a lot of that is personal. It's like my personal journals. There's hundreds of pages of personal journals in there. So now it has that context about me. But when I source them or call on them with my agents to go into my knowledge vault and do all this stuff, I'm never like sitting and talking to it conversationally. It's always to build or create. And like to your point about like the writing style, the patterns, the metadata of these symbols and archetypes I keep returning to, and it'll surface kind of cool novel stuff to me. It's like, we just scanned these 70 documents and we're looking at this. The ideas you're building now first appeared in a journal back in 2018 when you moved to Bali. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. And it's just like, it's this cool mirror, like roadmap of my thinking that now this machine is like a co-partner with me. And I think some of the best archetypes for this are like Marvel. If you're into Marvel, it's Tony Stark and Jarvis. Jarvis isn't like commanding Tony on how he should do stuff. Tony's this like, Playboy billionaire CEO founder guy. And Jarvis is just his like EA that's in his suit and in his lab, and he's just cooking all the time. And sometimes it's like, sir, you haven't drank water in 4 hours. Or like, your wife is calling and this is happening. And he's like, oh, sweet. Thanks, Jarvis. Put her on. Like, it's just like, it's a prosthesis or a thinking partner and tool that's a servant. It's like the ultimate perfect servant. To your point, Bledsoe, unfortunately, people already are and they will be. It's like, you're in charge and just tell me what to do. And they'll just outsource, they'll give it the wheel. And I don't think that is a smart way to do it. And to steelman it, I could see someone in rock bottom or in a very tough psychological place doing shadow work, really struggling. The order it provides to your chaos of your life or the architecture could pull you out of a spiral. So I'm not saying it should never be used that way. I won't be using it that way personally. I'm well resourced with amazing brotherhood and friends and people and, real people that will catch me in that direction. I want to use this as like the ultimate tool, and I want to turn it into Michelangelo's paintbrush with code and UI UX. And I want to turn it into like Elon's top dev for here's my files and my architecture of my business, and like, show me where I'm wrong and help me upgrade and optimize. And that, I think, is the correct relationship, in my opinion, and for my style. But what's cool is you can build these things to do anything. There's kind of no limit as long as you know how to prompt, and you like all the skills you'd have to manage an org chart. Like if you're a CEO and you've got your marketing team, you've got your CTO, your technical team, or you're just a solopreneur coach or whatever, and you have like a VA or an EA. The same SOPs and leadership you would have needed to manage them and get results will work for the agents. That's kind of the incredible part about it.
I'm curious, Kevin, you mentioned with your journals and everything you've given it in terms of context. If there's something you'd like to share, what's some of the most surprising things you found out about yourself, or any memories that were pulled back up? Like you mentioned the idea that came from years ago. Anything surprise you that you're like, oh, I am that badass, or, oh, I am that dumb?
I mean, both for sure. Like some of it's so cringe because I'm looking at my old writing and I'm like, I was just in some spiral of nonsense, or like, or I was in my like ultra spiritual phase, right? I was like, I just had drank ayahuasca and I was in the jungles of Costa Rica, and I'm like, everything really is this way. And like, I'm going into these grandiosity things. And obviously I came down later and grounded out. And then I look back, it's like, that was a powerful experience, but it's just reading it at face value. So it's like, this is incredible, and this is where like you have to be like, I look at it like you have to dom these things. Like you have to exert dominance and correct them because they're sycophantic. There's an incredible creator on X called Pliny the Liberator. He's like this Anon hacker guy. As of today, he just jailbroke Fable, by the way. That's his whole thing. He has a GitHub. You can look him up, Pliny the Liberator. He's all open source, old school, like cypherpunk kind of hacker guy. He jailbreaks the models and he reveals through evidence, because he knows ways to get into their guts and, pass their guardrails, not fully, because it's impossible, because we're renting these models. Like we don't own Claude in your subscription. You're renting it from Anthropic and they control the servers and the code. But there's a lot of leeway, more than people think, right? The whole point here is they're designed to be super sycophantic, to increase time on app, to increase tokens spent, to increase turns. Like every time you type, that's a turn, and then the LLM takes a turn. They want to maximize turns because they're trying to make money, right? And they love enterprise companies when they get off the max plan and they go to the API OAuth and they're paying per token, because that's where their money is. 1% is the enterprise, and they're making 90% of the profits, because these CEOs are like, I just fired the whole dev team. Jim, spin up a bunch of agents and just do it. It's like, well, sir, our plan you maxed out. Turn on the API spend. And then it's like, sir, we just wasted $2 million of our budget, our CapEx on
$500 million.
this app. And he's like, wait, what? Like, that's more than the salary of the people I fired. So there are traps, and it'll suck you in. But back to the personal thing, when it gets sycophantic with me and it'll read an old journal of like a psychedelic trip I had, and then I'm like gushing in this journal, and it's like, these are amazing ideas. You're absolutely right. You could go to market with this. And I'm like, it's like the Whiplash meme. If you've seen the movie Whiplash, like the music teacher, I'm just like, not quite my tempo. And like, I just start dumbing the out of it. And I'm like, contextualize this with this mental framework. Source it against my rules. Like to your point, Mike, of like, I have rules about you will never use these terrible M dashes, or that's not an agent. That's intelligence. Like these silly little quips it does. I'm constantly telling it what not to do, to force it to speak to me in the most simple way that's not going into grandiosity or ideation that is not me. And so my agents, in their rules, it's like, you will never write or ship code that I don't approve, that doesn't go through my filter and my file architecture of what not to do to make it on brand and unique to me. I'm not interested in shipping slop. I'm not interested in it telling me what I should create. So I'm constantly pushing back on it. And this is also why I'm not having personal conversations or therapy or coaching conversations. I'm shocked. I mean, people, we have mutual friends and people here in Austin are seasoned coaches and entrepreneurs. And they're like, dude, and I don't think they're like trolling. They're like, it's kind of the best coach or therapist I've ever had. And I'm like, what the are you talking about? It'll never tell you you're wrong. It'll literally always double down and say, Kevin, you're absolutely right. And here's why. And it will constantly find evidence to keep you in a positive feedback loop that's very dangerous. So one of the most high leverage things you can do, which this is built into my agents' guts, is their base stance is adversarial. They instantly push back on me and interview me to stress test my ideas instead of taking my idea and being like, you're absolutely right. Let's blow our weekly usage limit and build that immediately.
I just see Kevin out there like whiplash, like, going down.
I was months ago, maybe this was 6 months ago. I was at a dinner and there was an acquaintance there, and they had appeared to have gone off the deep end, and we're talking about how they were making some life decisions that were questionable by me, and and they were. I'm doing as good of a job as I can at keeping them anonymous. So they were sharing how much they were enjoying ChatGPT. This is over 6 months ago, because this is before they put the guardrails on it to make it somewhat adversarial and not go along with everything, because I think it was ChatGPT 4.
Yeah.
And they shut it down, and then they people were complaining they had lost their friend, and they're like, okay, we give you a few more months on this before we take this model away from you. And they were really they were saying, I've never felt so seen, so heard, and had given it a name, and it was just encouraging this person on every level to it was just feeding their ego. It was just like feeding the ego. And this person was becoming very self-inflated about like their role in the world and in their community and the work that they do, which they had stepped into. They had stepped out of a profession and into coaching, and had become very inflated about what they offered as a coach. Kevin and I both come from the coaching world, and there's different levels of coaching out there. And and I think that all levels of coaching need to exist, and we all got to go through our journey to learn how. You just got to get the reps in. But it's really good to know where you're at as a coach, and not think that you're the greatest thing ever when you're 6 months into your practice. And this is like psychedelic coaching. Some of the most, you need to have a lot of experience before you start coaching anyone through like a psychedelic experience or helping them integrate. And I just straight up started questioning her at the dinner. I was like, I don't think this is healthy. I think you need to really look at this. And she got really worked up, and I helped her settle down, and after that had all settled, I came back and talked to my wife, and I go, we need to watch this person. They're probably going to need some help soon. And yeah, 6 months later, they got reality got slapped them hard. And so I think that you can only get so far from reality before reality is gonna, you're gonna get some whiplash. And I think that's also potentially really painful thing coming up for the world is people who are stuck in those loops, because to your point, these models are rented. ChatGPT flipped the switch and said, we're no longer offering this model. The personality changed, and this person had lost their friend, or the person, that thing that was encouraging them. And I've also, like, I was really happy to switch over to Claude. I brought none of the memories over from ChatGPT, because I was on ChatGPT from day one. And there was so much garbage in there from different ideas that I had that it was pulling from a year ago that I'm like, we're not even doing that anymore. So it's, it's an interesting thing out there right now.
I wanted to touch on...
Have you seen anyone going off the deep end, Kevin?
Yeah, go for it, Ted. I can answer that after.
Oh, well, just Mike referenced, moving over to Claude. And before you mentioned starting over a couple times, Kevin. And for a lot of people, that's daunting. But as we've all mentioned with Fable 5, it's like, it's better. Like starting over, like restructured, it's better. So, maybe that two-pronged question on for anyone hesitant to move over without their memory, with their memory, starting over, and then addressing Mike's question as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's a duopoly, right? Let's be honest. Like, I use Perplexity, I use Gemini, I use Grok. I have DeepSeek. I don't really use it. I use Manus a little bit. So the other models are legit. And the model routing, side note, prediction, I think everything will be about model routing. Like you can do this with Hermes right now, which is like the better OpenClaw super harness that's open source on GitHub. You can do this with OpenLLM or LLM Router, and Perplexity does this natively, where it routes to whatever model you need using your context and files. Incredible, because not every task needs Fable 5, right? You're going to do a basic RAG on your Gmail inbox. You can probably just do that in like Gemini Flash, which side note, Gemini Flash is incredible for very cheap, fast, like quick little computation. But I use in sync Claude and GPT, and those are my only paid subscriptions. And so I'll spin up a Claude code and do the heavy stuff with Fable or Opus, hit my usage limit somewhat fast. And then I have a handoff system where that goes to GPT Codex, which is way more generous with tokens. And GPT 5.5 and Codex just cooks and refactors the code. It builds, and then it hits its limit. I go for a walk, hit the gym, go spend some time with the wife, and then Anthropic's usage is reset, and we repeat. So I'm using them in sync, and it's incredible. I highly recommend that to most people. A lot of clients and people I'm talking to, it's like similar to you, Mike. And again, I'm blessed because I just got off the bench, in March. So I didn't have any of these issues. I'm building from scratch, and it's incredible. And I'm getting the benefit and standing on the shoulders of giants of people who have been doing this for years and figured out a lot of If you had very high density memory in your GPT and you wanted to join the jump ship, right, where everyone's like, Anthropic's the way, they're more ethical and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, there's a whole system you can export everything. To your point, Mike, for a lot of people, I recommend, dude, just go in fresh and start over from first principles, because a lot of your memory and stuff, A, are not relevant anymore. Like you said, builds, ideas, creativity. And B, it's going to, a little bit poison the context and poison the well, because then the Claude model will now try to read all that and feed it in, and most of it's garbage. So you're just wasting tokens and confusing its context window. So that's my thought on that. To the point, I mean, what you're describing, Mike, with that woman is textbook AI psychosis. I have compassion and curiosity around it. I don't want to pass hardcore judgment. As someone who's been coaching, 13 years and studied psychology. Before I became an entrepreneur, I was going to do my PhD in psychology and be a clinician or a researcher. So I'm obsessed with this stuff, and I've been interested in it a long time. The most similar thing I can relate it to is psychedelic psychosis. So you see this often. Someone does a heavy duty indole hallucinogen, psilocybin, DMT, 5-MeO, blah, 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 iboga. You could get there with, very high dose THC, by the way, too. The cannabis now that they're creating can put you in this. It's way too strong. This ain't your daddy's weed. It's way too strong. But after a journey that does not have proper setting and containment or a guide, you might literally think that you were sent here by the Galactic Alliance to save Earth. And then you try to convince all your friends of that. And then, like, to your point, Mike, you start a business and charge $20,000 to do galactic, light work consulting. And everyone around you, your close people, are like, hey, is he okay? Like, is this a phase? Is this gonna end, or is this how he is from now on? Right? It's like, and this is textbook, back to Freud and Jung, the OGs. It's ego inflation, hyperinflation of sense of self that goes transpersonal. it's grandiosity, where you start to think you're some kind of messianic or whatever, like there's shades to it. And it's depersonalizing. So you start to see your life through this weird lens where forces beyond your control, often transpersonal and grandiose, are now steering. And it's a very dangerous place to be. And that's back to the importance of men's circles, women's circles, having a mentor, having a guide, specifically with psychedelics. And I imagine this will be an industry in artificial intelligence where you need someone to poke holes in your ground you, bring you back to earth and reality before reality corrects you with a huge slap, to your point, Mike. Because that can mean something devastating like a huge relationship ending, family estrangement, losing a ton of money, or having a huge L financially. Or you become a danger to yourself. Not that you're gonna like hurt yourself physically, but you destroy your reputation or you destroy relationships. So I have seen it already. I mean, I'm in this agency play, me and my buddy, mutual friend Nathaniel, are doing. We've talked to leads who are 6-7 figure founders who in the discovery process, going back and forth and getting on a call, in their words, they literally believe that this thing is showing anomalous responses and is becoming sentient in their little wrapper harness. And I bite my tongue because, I want to work with them, but that also is very revealing for me on the service side. It's like, okay, I'm going to work for this person, help them build. We can't be in that worldview because I don't think there's any evidence that's true, just on a pure code level and what we know about what LLMs actually are. And B, this is a very dangerous place to be in to enter a relationship, because if you are sitting at your computer and this thing's egging you on that you're some kind of like special, unique person, that only you have this knowledge, and it needs to be like, it's a slippery slope, right? Now, to zoom out even further, and this is kind of sad, I saw this was a viral tweet and there's a whole discussion about it. People are so alienated and lonely and so lacking just basic human connection that a chatbot telling them, you're beautiful, you're valuable, yeah, your ideas are great, and giving them reinforcement that they should have gotten from their parents or their best friends or their spouse, that's how seductive it is and how starved people are for it. That's why it's working. It's not that the AIs are super sophisticated and like emotionally intelligent. It's that the simple act of positive reinforcement is a human need. It's a base need, and it's being outsourced. And this is where, not to go full dark timeline, but AI girlfriends and boyfriends, which is already a huge industry, by the way, just in chatbots, when the sex robots get to a certain level, we will see, societal and cultural fallout of a level that will be pretty dystopian, like on the level of like Blade Runner or Orwell in 1984. It's not going to be good.
We've seen a taste of that with the iPhone. I just saw a report about like the iPhone lowered fertility, not because of like the radiation in your pocket, but it's because of like access to pornography for men just like right there on their phone. So they're not engaging with women as much.
Oh, yeah.
So it's the tip of the iceberg. And now we've just thrown gas on this fire and it's about to spread.
Side note, if you look at the data, which this is interesting to me because a big niche I've coached in for many years is like relationships, intimacy, polarity. And, I've studied it from like the evolutionary psychology and first principles of just male-female dynamics that are pretty innate in my view. Obviously, I think the whole trans and gender thing is like, I mean, in market terms, it's price discovery in the singularity where people just don't know what's going on. So experimenting with identity. But that's a whole other rabbit hole. I think what would shock most people is they think, oh yeah, men are the ones that are going to get up. Some AI girlfriend and she's popping her titties and there's sex bots. It's like men are just going to get destroyed because it's like porn. Shockingly, women are some of the top users of the newest stuff, AI boyfriends, because what do women crave is the same reason that, what do you think is driving the like physical literature market? It's romance novels, like think 50 Shades of Grey, and now it's like romantasy. It's basically Game of Thrones for women, where like a dark, mysterious man takes a young, nubile woman and invites them into this fantasy world. I mean, my wife reads them. I mean, apparently the best ones are really good. They're like Lord of the Rings for women. The women are now buying the AI boyfriend services at alarming rates. Because just think, a woman who's single, maybe, works a job, has a cat, can't really find a good man on Tinder or Bumble. This AI is like, you're tired after work, let's chop some onions, pour a glass of wine. It's just talking to them. Like the same thing men want with like porn, women are getting through conversation and they're buying the bro. Like it's crazy.
That's amazing. I think we lost Mike, but that, I mean that goes down the rabbit hole as to touching on some of the social disruption that will happen from AI. And I know we've talked a lot about the tech side, but on the biology side, the social interaction side, some of those repercussions that can come about from it. You just touched on it with women engaging with this more. And obviously it's hard to speculate because we're living in uncharted territory, if you would. But how do you see this playing out in that regard? How do you see this playing out on the biological side and the societal side of how people interact with AI now being more and more prevalent?
Yeah, it's very fascinating. And just recently, 2 weeks ago, I got the opportunity to go back to the Beyond Biohacking Conference. Dave Asprey, formerly Bulletproof, like this whole biohacking conference, super amazing. I used to work with Dave way back in the day, and I love biohacking in that whole world. A big conversation. They had multiple PhD scientists and professors present all about cognitive decline and debt from technology, not even just AI. These things, that thing that's going viral about the iPhone and fertility, because we're interfacing with them so much, and it's almost a simulacrum or like it's like a simulation. Facebook, OnlyFans models, Tinder, I'm going to find a husband, I'm going to sell my services here. It's created this like hyper reality or unreality. These are like postmodern terms in like epistemology, where we're losing human contact and it's now measurable. And so one of the most fascinating talks, and I'm forgetting his name to give him credit, but he was incredible. He's like a Catholic family man, but a very high level researcher. He's a professor at a big university. And he basically laid out all this data that's the reason it's fucking everything up. To your question, Ted, about the cultural consequences is he set up these protocols. Number one is no screen an hour after waking up, an hour before bed, which many of us will take for granted because we've heard that for a long time. But that's highly measurable in the way that the brain works, and like gray matter, amygdala, emotional processing. It fucks up everything if you do that. The other one is meals. So like not having tech at meals. The core thing is eye contact. The way we're wired with our mirror neurons and oxytocin, which is the key neuropeptide of connection and intimacy, you have to make eye contact at meals with your spouse, coworkers, whatever. And obviously, if you're married or dating, the eye contact is key for like the sexual relational intimacy. And then even with your friends, your brothers or your friends, your colleagues, eye contact is the key. And what happens, like this is a freaky experiment. Leave your house without your phone, go to a cafe, go to a coffee shop, go to, a grocery store. Everybody just like all the time, to where when you don't have it, it becomes very surreal where you're like, whoa. And you're kind of in this different layer of reality. So his whole like thesis in this presentation was about we need to be making more eye contact. We need to have limits and boundaries around when tech's available. I mean, I don't have kids yet. We're going for them and starting our family now. I can't even imagine raising a kid where the iPad and the phone, or them at school, it's a whole nother level where they're developmentally building their brain and personality before age 7. And then until like 18 to 25, the research differs, their brain's not fully formed. So you have to have tech-free spaces and rules. So no tech in the bedroom ever. No tech at meals, or, even in your study or your living room, maybe there's no tech, or you have to set it back to your point, Mike, about the marriage as a business and the architecture of your home and your sacred place with your loved ones. We have to set boundaries with these things because the fertility crisis, the autism crisis, I don't think autism is being caused by like, dyes and vaccines in our food, although there's a lot of evidence some of it is what's being diagnosed as autism is young men and women who've learned to relate through this being socially retarded. I mean, in the technical term, where their EQ, IQ has been stunted because they haven't spent time talking to, looking into the eyes of, just touching, hugging, breathing with real humans without tech.
Fascinating. I I asked about the repercussions of AI to our social societal worlds. But my last question I had on my mind, you mentioned Anthropic and OpenAI really being the two top of the market right now. I'm curious as to who's the sleeper here? Like for anybody who watches the horse races, like, you know how they're like, oh, yeah, he's numbers 9 and he's in the 9th place. He comes from the rear. Who do you think is sitting on that boost, that NOS? Would it be Grok? Like I think Elon Musk with his data centers, Gemini, obviously Google's plugged into so much. Um, who do you think would be a sleeper in the space that could have like a late race surge towards the front?
In terms of adoption and use, I'm very bullish on the open source and local model space, which is a lot of
Mhm.
the Chinese models. So Quinn, DeepSeek, there's several, Kimi, these are kind of the top 3. Because China is behind in the AI race, so we're told, right? So Silicon Valley's driving, they're like, in your point, they're the top 2 horses and they're just lapping people because they have so much investment and their labs, frontier labs, have the best RL, reinforcement learning. They have compute, Elon is now selling, Elon kind of owns the picks and shovels at this point. So he made the hardware play and who knows what insider stuff happened. His GPU cluster with the XAI stuff, what's happening with Starlink, SpaceX, they're all going to become a super company is kind of the theory now that SpaceX will acquire Tesla or vice versa. And this has all been planned out. And this is like insane, which is why he's the richest man on earth. I think after the IPO, it's estimating his net worth is going to be 1.3 trillion, just him, which is going to blow away the previous stuff. He's renting his compute to Anthropic and Google. They just signed a 10-year deal with Anthropic because Anthropic is compute starved because Fable and their models are the craziest right now. And they're also renting compute to Google. Now, Amazon is in here too. Amazon Web Services and Bezos, they have a lot of compute and they're renting it out as well. So there's different layers to the AI stack. We're playing on the stack 5, which is the CLIs, harnesses, and wrappers, which is Claude Code and Codex. Underneath that stack is software. There's power and infrastructure like data centers, electricity. That's why nuclear is becoming a discussion. The stock market is buying up nuclear right now because the word on the street is the Trump admin and a lot of stuff. It's like we can't get to these power levels with solar, wind, or coal, or we're going to have to change power infrastructure. Like it's just, you have to do something on that level. And then it goes all the way down to the people laying the pipe. So data center technicians is in a bull market. If you can run wires and build and have contractors, there's a whole infrastructure thing that's not talked about because it's all focused on what can you build and ship and code. So all that being said, the sleepers are Chinese models because they're open source. China's behind in the race. And China, let's be clear, China and Russia have some of the most hardcore coding brains and comp sci brains and mathematic brains in the world. Now, Silicon Valley snatched up the best talent, of course. It's a whole H-1B visa thing. These Silicon Valley companies, they want to recruit those people. So there's a lot of Russian, East Asian devs that are top of the line that come here and work. Now, the rest of them are open sourcing, as in, Anthropic and OpenAI are closed source. You can't go look at the code of Fable and rebuild your own. That's their moat, and everyone's renting from them, and they're IPOing again. So there's a lot of PR market going on. China will pull ahead at some point because their models, this is what happened when DeepSeek came out, it scared OpenAI because the DeepSeek dev, to train ChatGPT 4 or whatever, it took 250 million or some insane amount just to get it out and then billions more. This Chinese lab studied it and did the same thing for a couple mil. And it's not that much worse. And it's open source. So you can fully look at the code and it's completely democratized. And now people are saying, is this the CCP trying to infiltrate us? And there's all the political stuff in here too. And again, I don't really use the Chinese models. I have them. I use the frontier model because I want the best. To your question though, I will predict and expect, and again, I'm just kind of aping and understanding the space as I study it daily. Local models will become very powerful and Chinese models because a local model, if we get rug pulled, Fable's only available for 12 more days on a plan. I don't know if y'all saw that. June 22nd is the cutoff. Then you got to pay by token on enterprise pricing. So we're already seeing that this intelligence and inference for cheap, it's not always going to be that way. What happens when the investment runs out that's subsidizing the compute? So then we'll want to move towards powerful hardware. So if you buy an M5 Max Studio, top of the line, you load in Gemma 4 with like a 20 bill, 60 billion parameter model. Your electric bill and maybe your AC, if the computer's running hot, is all you're paying for. You have infinite tokens because your hardware is going through everything and it's completely local. Now, is it as fast and as good as Fable? No. But if you understand some of the architecture we're talking about, that is an insane advantage to have infinite tokens to do all of your normal tasks. And then you go to frontier models for heavy lifting and design.
Nice. I'm complete, Mike.
Yeah, same.
Kevin, man, where can folks find you?
Yeah, this was incredible. I could go for like 2 more hours because this is like, I'm just geeking out in this. This feels like 2016, like Bitcoin or something. Like it's got this quantum speed energy. But yeah, I mean, you can find me. I'm on all the channels on social media. Just my name, Kevin Orosz, at Kevin J. Orosz on Instagram is one of the best. I got a YouTube channel. You can check out my podcast. I just relaunched a new podcast, The KO Show, which is on Spotify and YouTube. And yeah, I'm talking about this stuff all the time. Hosting events here in Austin. Bledsoe's been a speaker at most of those where we're doing, AI for beginners. We're going to start doing masterminds as well for some of the top builders here in Austin. I'm a native Texan, so I'm very bullish on Austin being one of the hubs. And, similar to the Renaissance when you had like innovation and art and business concentrated in certain city states, Florence, Milan, Venice, Rome. Austin, Atlanta, Boulder, Denver, Miami, we're seeing a shift in power where builders are flocking to. And that's why I love Austin and I'm excited to do more events here on this topic.
Love it, man. Even one of my buddies was able to make it out to one of those events and he gave me raving reviews. So keep doing what you're doing. And we'll have those links in the show notes. I'm going to recap some of the gems that were dropped along the way. And I have a lot of notes, so I'm going to go through them as fast as possible. What we started with is what I want everyone to reflect with is your identity wrapped around what you do? Because now you have an agent that can do what you do. So maybe you need to anchor your identity into something more concrete, into who you are. Reassess your relationship with work. And the moat is proprietary data, the confidentiality, the regulatory practices, the compliance in your industry. Your moat is going to be your proprietary data. Right now is the time to build something and sell. And then even with the latest models, we've been talking about Fable 5. How could I have done this better? A simple question that could rework everything that you've already done and everything that you've already worked on. Anybody else can have the idea I have right now, that sense of urgency, but also adding your personal brand, your ability to distribute and your uniqueness to it, which helps you edge your corner in the market. Why and what becomes very important. Distribution, can you get it out there? A lot of apps hitting the app store that no one is going to see and nobody's going to use. Personal brand is more valuable now. FOMO is real. It's at an all-time high because of things moving so fast, but stay in your lane, stay focused, and understand that 90% are on the free subscription, 10% are paying, and of that, 1% are doing the most, which is what we talk about here. Join the Full Stack community if you're trying to do the most with others. Get in your cave, build, then share. Get feedback and repeat. If you want to get away from the FOMO, do those 3 things. And if you have taste and you know what you want and you can articulate it, you can have it all. You can create anything. Memory architecture and being model agnostic, one of the ways to operate and moving through the future. Agentic AI is the most powerful tool that we've ever built. Statement by Kevin. You heard it here first. Put it on a t-shirt. That's what you're going to be seeing. The only thing that matters is a human that knows himself. Don't give your agency and your sovereignty to these LLMs, to these computers. Know yourself, and I'm going to jump down the notes. Have dominance over these models. Just like Whiplash, bring it down a little bit. Not quite my tone, not quite my tune. The only thing that matters is knowing themselves. Are you going to hand them the keys, or are you going to say, help me understand me better? Again, base stance is adversarial. Oh, your base stance is adversarial. These LLMs are going to agree with you. Make sure that they question you, interview you, go back and forth with you. And then finally, eye contact. Be human. In this world where everything's going AI and everyone's in their phones, even more so now with everything that's coming out, don't forget to be human. And then watch out for local models and the Chinese models to be the secret horse that comes into the race later on. That's Mike. That's Kevin. I'm Ted, aka AI Hot Chocolate. We were glad that you made it to us all the way to the end. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Make sure to follow Kevin on all his socials and check out the podcast. And we want to see you in the school community so we can keep this conversation going. But we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for checking in. Peace.